It's Reusse Unchained, presented by Josh Arnold, investment consultant and Mr. Money Talk. And yesterday, we were about 15 minutes into our Thursday Reusse Unchained section, and the Glenn Taylor press release broke the internet. So, Pat, now that you put a story up, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com too. Now that you've had a day to digest this and consume and talk to people, whatever, your thoughts?
My thoughts is I think that it's pretty obvious that Glenn, he could have waited another 30 days or something. They could then get the NBA approval, but I think they realized that they were giving these guys a free $1 billion if they ended up finally letting them make the deal because they had the best deal of all time. They could have paid it off last December if they wanted to, or earlier. Why didn't they just pay him? But I think he doesn't. My theory is they want more value of what the franchise is worth now, and they have the opportunity to do it because, according to him, the paperwork was not properly filed. But here's what I can't understand: why did they have to go to the Carlyle Group and everybody else to go get their? Didn't they have the money? Didn't I thought Lori was a billionaire?
Did you see? Did you see the story from our favorite publication, the New York Post? That basically spells it out. And if that's accurate, it was not really reported well, which is that Lori basically made the initial investment and then told his buddy A-Rod, okay, you're on the hook to find the investors. And this became an A-Rod production, which I don't think we ever thought was the case. We thought that Mark was the main guy. According to this story, A-Rod became the main guy while Mark took care of all his behind-the-scenes endeavors that he was trying to work on.
I admit I haven't seen the Post story, but
it's interesting.
Rely on the Post. Who did their NBA guy do it, or one of their business people?
It was the same. It was the same pair that did the story about the J-Lo breakup impacting the finances. Okay. It's from Josh Kosman and Ryan Glass-Steagall. And then I'll just fill in a couple things for you here too from what Judd said. So Mark Lowry told the NBA 2 or 3 years ago that his net worth was $4 billion.
Okay.
And he invested the bigger chunk between the two of them. Right now, Mark Lowry owns like 29% of the team, and A-Rod owns, I think it's 7%.
Yeah.
And for the last year and a half or 2 years, the agreement between Lowry and A-Rod was, okay, hey, Mark put in his share. Okay. A-Rod, you need to go find. They were supposed to be equal investors by the end of this whole thing. And A-Rod himself doesn't have the net worth or the liquid. So that's why he's been trying to tap into these private investment firms. But they're still saying, like, hey, I know that we had one fall through and it's been a race to the finish line, but we still filed. We still have the money.
And this, whatever it is, blue home court or something.
Blue Owl, isn't
it? What is it? Whatever it is.
It's got a court in it now. I saw the name.
They changed their name,
And Judd, you looked this up, right? They basically have filled in smaller gaps in the financing, like 6% or something. Yes. And now all of a sudden they're getting 30. They're covering. You're telling me now they're covering A-Rod's share, basically the 22% or whatever it would be, or no, more than that, whatever they need to get to 60%. Right?
Yeah, I think the reporting is they needed an extra $500 million for this last round.
Kind of small.
And Lowry is not willing to put in very much, if at all, more than he already did, because he's neck deep in this company, this startup called Wonder, which just completed a $700 million round. And sources tell the New York Post that a lot of his net worth is tied up in that company, and he's working 100 hours a week running that company.
And that's basically what Taylor told me, is that, and he was trying to get a hunk from Taylor the day I happened to be in Naples that morning. Glenn had just walked out of a Zoom room call with Lori, and I think, Glenn didn't say this, but it sounded like he was looking for a big hunk from Glenn, and Glenn passed. I think. I mean, I'm not sure, but it seemed as though he was going to pass on this. But he also told me Laurie told him that he was working 24/7 on his other deals, and he hadn't been at many Wolves games at all this year, right?
No.
He was showing up with his shoes off a couple of years ago, and when they were going to win a game. So hey, good. Congratulations to the Post for digging it. It makes sense now, doesn't it? That A-Rod's
Yes.
out looking for money, and
Yes.
A-Rod
And Pat,
is
if we had been told at the time when this all started, if we had
yes.
been told that Laurie was going to play a key initial role, but you had been directly told, but here's the thing, A-Rod is going to be a primary investor, all of us on this show would have said that ain't going to work.
And
I,
in the meantime, A-Rod has also got divorced someone who might have been able to cover the money
yes.
for him, and J-Lo, who's got a
Yep.
lot more money than A-Rod ever
Yeah.
thought of
Well, Pat,
having.
that's a huge. We were on a text thread, just me, Judd, and Doogie talking about that last night. That, and this is from the New York Post too. They wrote an article about the J-Lo thing a year and a half ago, and then they kind of brought back some of the reporting yesterday. That part of Laurie's attraction to A-Rod the first time around 3 years ago was A-Rod's then girlfriend Jennifer Lopez. It was shortly before A-Rod and J-Lo called off their engagement that A-Rod and Laurie launched their bid for the Timberwolves. It was right around that time. So the courting of Mark Laurie and, hey, let's do this. Should we do this? All of those initial conversations leading up to the discussion with the Timberwolves, J-Lo was kind of part of the deal, right? Like they were going to get married, and
Yes,
they
right.
they had been together for a few years, and I don't know if it was going to be part of her net worth tied up in the Timberwolves or how that was going to work, but once she went out of the picture, A-Rod, according to the Post, wasn't well prepared for the breakup from a financial standpoint, according
Yes,
to
right.
sources.
That's a very good way of saying that. Yeah, well, so he had to go find somebody to come up with the money. Now there there's all this stuff about 90-day tranches and stuff like that. I don't know anything about it, but I think it was supposed to be done sometime in the middle of last year, wasn't it? And then it ended up being December. It had to be done. It was the whole deal was funny all along, right? The way they were making their payments. But now we know why. Because of the thank God the New York Post still exists. Even but now we know why they kept. Why didn't they? Hey, this is the greatest bargain in sports. Why didn't we just write out the check, Laurie, and take it? What? Why didn't they do that? Because he was out,
Right.
raising money for other things. So I have no idea. But the NBA, Glenn, for all his issues with Joe Smith and that, there's a good story about that, which he's not going to let me write. But anyway,
Oh.
it,
Well, you can talk about it, I'm sure.
yeah, oh yeah, that's yeah, and but
If we
the
were still on
NBA,
1500 ESPN, you could talk about it and no one would care.
the NBA made him the chairman of the board for like 7 years or
Yep.
something. I mean, does I got to think? Who knows if he did or not? I don't know anything, but I got to think he's had discussions with the NBA when he bought the team. Okay, we'll go back here. We'll go back 1994, right? 1994.
Mm-hmm.
When he bought the team, he made the deal, the handshake deal. It was such a mom and pop operation that he called the NBA office and said, "Could you have somebody call me in Minnesota? I'm at the hotel that I have bought the Timberwolves. I bought the majority share of the Timberwolves." And they said,
I
he says,
promise.
and yeah, and the woman answered the phone, said, "Well, how do we know that?" He says, "My name's Glenn Taylor. Just call anybody you know in Minnesota and they'll know who I am, that I have the money." But the guy that they put him through to was Adam Silver. And and he convinced Adam Silver, yes, I'd buy it. Because remember, they had they couldn't come up with anybody with the money to pay
Yeah.
88 million $88 million. Nobody wanted to pay. I mean, we let the North Stars leave the year before when nobody came up with $38 million in
Yeah.
Minnesota.
And
$38
if he
million.
sells it in the next, if let's say he puts them back on the market, it's going to be a $3 billion
Yes, it is.
sale price.
But and then Adam Silver got in a plane. The NBA did have a plane back there and flew out, and 4 hours later. But the deal was done with Glenn shaking hands with Marv Wolfenson that morning, and and he said the key was I let Marv and Harv keep 10% and let them have their seats in the front of the. So A-Rod and Lori, I'm sure they're going to let Glenn's was going to keep 20% anyway to help him make the deal. So
Yeah.
So are they
I don't know
out
what
now? Do we think?
No, I think they're going to try to do something. Don't you think they're going to try? But legal, I
Right.
don't know if legal, the courts, you always have to have league approval, right?
Correct.
Even
Yes.
if you go to court, you still have to have league approval.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Well, a couple
I
things on that, on the will they still be around? Because as Glenn said yesterday, well, I got limited partners there. I'll treat them like my other limited partners. They combine own 36% of the
Yes,
team.
they
But
paid for
the
36%
New
so
York
far.
Post reporting has said because much of Mark Lowry's net worth is tied up in Wonder, and that company is not profitable, and they're trying to make it a thing, right? That he might just want, if he's not going to be majority owner, he might just want his 29% back so he can have some more financial flexibility and pump it into Wonder, or just have it for his own.
Yeah, but and obviously, uh, these guys want their money to do other things with and make money on their money. They're talking, but if they hold it for 3 years and Glenn sells again, they'll get double their money,
They
right?
will.
I mean, if you whatever they have invested now, which is I don't know, they were gonna end up with 75% for 1.5 million. So what is it? 1.2 billion is it gonna be? It's gonna be 1.2 billion. Well, if they'll get no, yeah, they were gonna get 80%, I guess, but anyway, they'll get double their money if they sell. What they got into it now, I think they got 400 million in it or 500. And I tried to do. Excuse me for babbling here, but because it's financial and you know, I took an economic class at Fulda, Minnesota that showed you how to balance your checkbook. That was it. That's my financial background. But
To be important.
the 36%, whatever it's worth now, it'll be worth double, right? So, but again, maybe Lori wants to do more creative things with that money. I mean, this is the guy that was going to build a city in the sky, right?
Correct.
I think he's still trying to do that.
And
Yes.
he might now be. I mean, it literally in going through the stories about him, it sounds like he was like a kid that got a toy,
Yeah.
and now he's got the toy, and he's
Well,
like, I don't really want to play with that toy anymore.
Yeah. For
Well,
sure.
but and it was A-Rod that was at the games, and A-Rod
Yes,
who took
acting.
over the room to he took over 2/3 of the press room to turn it into the A-Rod suite, and so he could entertain people. And maybe the people he was entertaining was the people he was trying to get money out of. I don't know, but
Here, and Pat, here's the other thing that I feel like isn't getting enough attention. There's because everyone's kind of fighting over, and Chris Hine did a great job in the Star Tribune of finding the clause in the contract that explains what the legal battle is going to be for who gains majority control of the team. But that's not, to me, that's not where this conversation really stops, because there's it's one thing to cobble enough money together and get a group, get a private firm, and okay, I hit my deadline and here we get controlling ownership of the team. You also need the finances and the flexibility to run the team, and run the team in the luxury tax, second apron of luxury tax.
Yes.
And I had a couple conversations yesterday with people that are way more plugged in than I am. And that is a major concern, that even if and I'm sure this has been a conversation with Glenn and the league, that, hey, God, even if these guys do hit all the marks and they cobble enough together to buy the team, well, the majority owner, Mark Lowry, is working 100 hours a week in New York City running Wonder. and they aren't going to have the flexibility to pay for a roster that includes $50 million Gobert, $50 million Karl Anthony Towns. Like, there is real concern from what I've heard about, okay, let's say they get the team. Now what? Can they actually operate the team?
And, everybody, let's face it, Taylor's track record of producing good teams isn't very good. But this is, whoever found, I know Glenn might not have found Tim Connolly, but he approved Tim Connolly, okay? Because he still was in control of the team, and he met him, and he likes him. And, I think that this idea that somehow if Glenn takes over again, they're going to be cheap and go in the tank. And, he's the owner with this team you have right now. He's the owner. He's still the owner. He owns, 60% or something like that. So
Right, but he had nothing to do with hiring Tim Connolly. And if Tim Connolly decides, if these guys aren't going to own the team anymore, then maybe I'll look for another job somewhere else.
He didn't find him, but he did, I think, perform benediction there. So he let them hire him. So
didn't at the press conference when Connolly got introduced, Glenn Taylor said he didn't know who he was.
He said beforehand he just knew of him. He didn't know who he was, but he had, he did. He didn't know who he was as a basketball man. No, not when he was out in Denver.
Here's my question: long term, who's going to eventually buy this team? Like that's if I'm an ardent Wolves fan, that concerns me the most right now, because everyone assures us this team will not move. This team will not move. Come on. If you really think this team is not going to move, and Glenn can, at some point in time, that family can take a check, and that's it. And if Glenn's gone by then, that's what concerns me.
Well, here's the other thing. They're not going to Vegas and they're not going to Seattle because the NBA is going to put expansion teams in there. But so the people who are worried about the future of the Wolves should be happy that Taylor's taking them for the next few years, because you're not going to have a press conference 2 days after the sale's complete.
Yes,
would have been complete, saying we need a new stadium and we need a new arena, where you can ride with the Target Center here for a few more years and get your act together to have somebody else come in. But there's it's the fact that this was created. I guess what I'm saying is that there's nothing going to change in the basketball operation except you're going to be better financed, because Clint's got some money, there's no doubt about that. But the other thing about it is he's got 81 companies, and this is one of them, okay? So it's not like the whole $1 billion of empire is there to support the Timberwolves, but I think that, he's having fun going to the games, although he won't have fun next time he's there. I'm sure he'll get booed. But
is A-Rod going to go to a game here? So are they going to be sitting awkwardly across the court from each other?
A-Rod will wave to the crowd and use the PR. But congratulations to the New York Post. You guys just told me more about this than I've told.
The A-Rod thing to me is the absolute linchpin of the entire story now.
He wants to be an owner so badly, but and David Sampson, the old president of the Marlins, who's on the Le Batard show, so they had the same tango when A-Rod tried to put a group together to buy the Marlins a few years back, and David Sampson said, man, A-Rod wants to be an owner so badly. He's got everything you could want. He's got the baseball background, the charm. He's got the suits. He's got everything except the money.
Yes, right. That's the problem. Now, I'm anti-A-Rod, okay, because the last time first of all, I've had to listen to him on TV, and he's a moron doing games. But B, the last time I saw him, when he was before the Wolves thing all came up, he was at spring training for a game. And I popped in and said, can I talk to you for 15 minutes? And he said, oh, yeah, sure. I'll come back in 5 minutes. And then he was gone. And didn't, he hit out on me. So I'm mad at him. The last time I wanted to talk to him, he stiffed me.
Classic.
So,
shocked.
But, yeah, it's it is interesting how popular these new owners are, even though we haven't seen Lori for a year, and we really don't know what the machinations are, but the former ownership has been covering the tabs, and they're making the money with sellouts and everything. So I don't know. I don't know what Manny. I don't know what guys like Ethan. I see they just were named the Sports Association of the Year or
They
something
did. They
like
did
that.
win an award. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
some
good
award.
timing to announce that 5 days ago instead of 2 days ago. Hey Pat, before we say goodbye, tell the audience where they should be looking for vehicles this spring, huh?
I say Jim Paul and Brett Paul's Valley Group of GM dealers. I got some. I was talking to Jim, and we had the big supply chain issues in the car business. The pandemic could caused extreme inventory shortages, and Jim said it also caused predatory pricing by some dealers. They charge thousands over the manufacturer's suggested retail price. Jim Paul never played that game. The Valley Group at GMC didn't take advantage of the shortage, and they now have their best inventory they've had in years. They got all the Buick and GMC models in Apple Valley and Hastings. They even have the big boys, the previously hard to find GMC Yukons, the heavy duty pickups, and Hummer EV. I can see you in one of those, Phil. A Hummer
Hell yeah.
EV, all electric Hummer, man. There's plenty of deep discounts right now and factory rebates with low interest financing. So Jim tells us it is a great time again to buy cars. We're welcoming back previous customers there, and any new customer that wants to go see them will be taken good care of. Valley Buick GMC in Apple Valley and Hastings, or valleycardealers.com. Check out their inventory and go out there and make a deal for a car that will be fair.
Yeah, and cross your fingers on Royce Lewis's quadriceps, I guess.
Yes, and our Gopher hockey survives, gets to the final. Jackson Nelson, Laverne, Magnolia, Minnesota. And I had to go back and point out that I wrote a column. I was down there seeing him in 2019 and wrote a column about the boy from the prairie, and now he's the hero. So, as we say, I found Caitlin Clark. I found Randy Brewer way back years ago, and now I found Jackson Nelson, even though he did lead the state in scoring when he was a sophomore. I was the first guy to write about Jackson Nelson. So,
Yes, the unquestioned
hey,
scouting eye of Patrick Royce.
say one more thing though to Judd. Where did this goal scoring orgy of his start? He's got like 10 goals in the last 5 games or
I
something.
know.
All of a
I
sudden,
know.
he's a fifth-year
What
senior and he can't be stopped.
what's happened to our boy Snuggie? Snuggie struggled to get on the
Snuggie,
score sheet. I was so high on Snuggie.
I
Not
was too
doing
with
well.
that booming shot.
Yeah, I'm not happy.
I know I was going to go over and talk to Snuggie a couple weeks ago, and he wasn't among the players invited to do the press conference. So I
That
don't
would
know
have been a
what's going
bad
on.
loss for Bob, though. So I'm glad Bob won that
Ooh,
game.
yes, I am. So, all right,
See ya.
good enough. I'm going to go to the New York Post right now. See ya.
All right,
Glass-Steagall's
Pat.
good.
Enjoy
Yep.
your
Thanks.
Talk to you
reading and
later.
enjoy your
Okay.
weekend. We'll talk
Yep.
on
Okay. All right.
Monday. There he is, Reusse Unchained here on Score North.